You're listening to the WrestleView Radio Network.
All right, Adam Martin here, editor-in-chief of WrestleView.com, live at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa. And joining me is Mr. Kent Sesker, and obviously very, very well known with this museum. And the reason I wanted to have you on the show is because we have a lot of people tuning into this right now who have heard of this Hall of Fame, and they would like some more information about it. There's a couple different sections of this. When I say Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, it's not just subject to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. There's also a heavy background in amateur wrestling. We're actually in one of the wings where there's a lot of rich history in amateur wrestling in addition to a pro wrestling wing. Give people some information if they've never been here and why it would be just a great place to visit if you're a wrestling fan, amateur wrestling fan, wherever the case might be.
Absolutely. First off, Adam, I appreciate you having me on the program and coming in broadcasting here from the museum and your participation in our events over the years. It certainly means a lot to us, and any additional media coverage that we receive, we certainly appreciate it. Just a quick history of the museum and where it started and where it's at now. It was started in 1998 by Mike and Bev Chapman in Newton, Iowa, and it was known then as the International Wrestling Institute and Museum. Was in Newton for 9 years through 2006. A decision was made then to move the museum to Waterloo, and Dan Gable's name to be added to it for obvious reasons. Of course, Dan Gable, Waterloo West native, three-time state champion, undefeated, went on to Iowa State, Olympic gold medal. Everybody knows Dan Gable's history. So it helped us tremendously from a recognition, credibility standpoint. And Dan is very active with the museum, so we're very fortunate to have his presence and helping out with events and as a day-to-day pulse on what goes on here at the museum. So about a year ago, we merged with the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum out of Stillwater, Oklahoma, which is essentially the first Hall of Fame honoring amateur wrestling, and it's right on the Oklahoma State campus in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and it's been a terrific deal for both parties. It's a combination of resources, talents, money. We're all on the same mission, trying to accomplish primarily the same things, just in two separate facilities. So thus, with the merger, we are now known officially as the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, located in downtown Waterloo. So essentially we have, I guess, 13 years of history going back to 1998. But as you mentioned earlier, Adam, we're the only facility in the world that celebrates both amateur wrestling and professional wrestling under one roof. So it's something that we're very proud of. And early on in the stages of the museum, I started here in February of '07, but just learning through what Mike Chapman did and the other folks that a very important piece of that was having a professional Hall of Fame. He was good friends with Lou Thez, and as part of the history, you go back to Frank Gotch and Abraham Lincoln and the Farmer Burns and Joe Stecker, and I could go on, but as part of the history of the sport, and the George Stragos Lou Thez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame is what we're celebrating this weekend with the inductions weekend and all of the awards, and we like to think it's getting bigger and better each and every year.
Absolutely.
And we're really proud of that. And the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame occupies 20% of the museum, so a significant chunk, and we get a great crowd every year. Terrific fans come from all over the country to come to this particular Hall of Fame inductions weekend. So we feel very fortunate about that. We've got a lot of loyal fans that enjoy coming every year. Joyce Postgen was mentioned earlier in the program. She's been to all 12 of our induction ceremony, which is incredible. But as you mentioned earlier, we have a fantastic display of both amateur and professional wrestling, celebrating the history of the sport, going all the way back to the earliest days through today's champions. We have an Olympic wing, an NCAA wing, a library, a theater, a lounge. As you mentioned, we're in the Glenn Brand Wrestling Hall of Fame of Iowa right now, which shares with our new wing, the Alan and Gloria Rice Greco-Roman Hall of Champions. We have a training center where we actually have a wrestling mat and bleachers, which includes men's and women's locker room, sauna, shower, etc. And we like to showcase that as much as possible. And we were fortunate this morning to be able to put together a mixed martial arts seminar, and had a cameo appearance by the legendary Dan Hodge. So, having him out there, 78 years old, and I tell you what, he can still mix it up. I wouldn't want to mess with him, and anybody in the right mind wouldn't want to.
I ran into Danny Hodge, actually. I was in the bathroom, and he was just walking out, and he gave me this stare, and I had this like moment where I paused, and I was like, do I say something to Danny Hodge? Because this guy could tear me apart at his age. He's just he's a monster. So that was very cool to see that kind of display as I was walking in, and that's the one thing I think is so cool about this museum is that, obviously a lot of the people watching now are pro wrestling fans, but
Sure.
there's a lot of people who are also into amateur wrestling, and to kind of have it all encompassed in one building. You mentioned Abraham Lincoln. There's a great display. There's a whole bunch of great displays with just the rich history of wrestling, which, that's the roots of it, which is kind of the modern day form of sports entertainment. But just, the increased popularity of mixed martial arts has obviously kind of put more focus on amateur wrestling. There's a great display over here to my left of books, anybody who's anybody in the history of amateur wrestling, which is really cool. And I wanted to also mention that, and this is kind of near and dear to my heart because I'm born and raised in Cedar Rapids. A couple of years ago, we had a really, really bad flood here, and this was one of the buildings that actually experienced a lot of things. A lot of merchandise, I believe, was lost that was very key. Obviously, things are back to normal. That was a couple of years ago. How did you come back from such basically a travesty that was affected a lot of Iowans in eastern Iowa?
It was truly a disaster, Adam. Absolutely right. I mean, I remember very vividly how it all unfolded. It was June 10th, 2008. And Kyle Klingman and I had made plans. We were getting ready to go out to Las Vegas for the Olympic trials for our freestyle and Greco-Roman teams. And, it was one of those deals where it hit quickly. We didn't really have much to prepare for. And, we were one of thousands. 83 out of 99 counties in Iowa, I believe, were considered federal disaster areas. So everybody was affected either directly or indirectly with their job or their home or a friend or a relative, and it was pretty difficult. We actually had 3 feet of water throughout the museum, and our basement, which is 5,000 square feet, and ceilings 9 feet high, was full of water. So it was tough, but we were really fortunate all in all. Most of the items that are in the museum that were actually on display, that were on the wall, were high enough that we were able to pull them off and bag them and save them. Our gift shop, as you mentioned, took a real tough hit because it's low to the ground, and we lost a lot of merchandise there. And we ended up cutting the drywall out at 4 feet and redoing that throughout the museum. So, interestingly enough, the renovation to this building had just taken place in 2006 when we were making the transition from Newton to Waterloo. So, McGee Construction here in Waterloo, Wayne McGee and his crew, they've been great with us, and they gave us a good deal as far as basically rebuilding the museum for the most part. Had to rip out all the carpet, and it's just kind of like when you're moving your residence, you don't realize how much you've accumulated until you have to move it somewhere.
Sure.
But taking everything off the walls in a museum is tough. We did get a lot of display cases that were ruined, of course, with the water, but interestingly enough, we took a lot of stuff to dry cleaners and trophy cleaning shops, and we were pretty lucky to salvage a lot of items. So we lost a considerable amount, but it could have been a lot worse. On the way back, we had a lot of great community support. People wanted to help out and keep us going, and made a lot of donations in the interim. After we had the Hall of Fame inductions and golf tournament 18 days after the flood hit. So it was tough, but BJ Race, God bless her, Harley Race's late wife, she just passed away a couple years ago. She contacted a ton of people within professional wrestling and had them donate a whole load of stuff, and I think she raised like $4,000 just on selling these items. She donated every penny to the museum.
Wow, that's very nice.
And Bret Hart was here that year, and he signed autographs for hours, and I think he donated every penny that he made on the autographs, like $1,500. So a lot of people came forward with donations and helped us out. And then we were fortunate that as a not-for-profit organization that we qualified for a grant from FEMA, which did cover the physical reconstruction costs of the building. And quite frankly, without that, we would have never made it back, just because it was just an insurmountable amount of money that we wouldn't have been able to raise in that particular time frame. So we were lucky with that. Bob Buckley, who was a president of the board of the directors, spearheaded that mission and got us a good deal with the clean out recovery team. It was funny when they came in and they said, well, here's what we need to do. We need to this out, this out, this out, and asked for a time frame. They said, well, we'll have it done in 4 days. 11 days later. You don't realize how heavy wet drywall is until you try to sling it around the parking lot into a big trash can. So, long story short, Adam, 7 months later, we reopened January 9th of 2009. Right before the national duels at the Unidome, and things have been going very well ever since.
It's a beautiful facility. It's always a treat to be able to come here, and obviously you guys opened the door to me, and I appreciate that so much. And if you can kind of hear in the background, we actually have an autograph signing taking place. Jim Ross, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Gerald Briscoe, a whole bunch of people just around the corner here signing autographs. And this has got to make you feel really good when a lot of people show up and they get an opportunity to. My favorite part about this is that you can get here a little bit early and you can practically see everything in the museum, and then you get to see a lot of these presentations. Obviously the pro wrestling wing is great. There's a ring in the middle of it. There's tons of merchandise and old posters and everything in the middle. This has got to make you feel really good when a lot of people show up here and want to take part in this experience.
Absolutely, Adam. It's always a very special day, a special weekend for the George Tragos Lou Thesz Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame inductions weekend. You know, we do a golf tournament. Every year we had our best event ever as far as numbers and participation yesterday, so we're thrilled with everybody who helped out with that and played in the event and sponsored holes and all those different things. But as you mentioned, the museum's full. You know, we had the mixed martial arts seminar with Greg Halser that Dan Hodge participated in, kicked off this morning. They went from 9 to 11. We want to showcase that facility and utilize that as much as possible. And then Brian Hoops did a terrific job with his Q&A session that he put on for the second year, and that's something that we'd like to have as a staple every year going forward, because I think it's just such a great, effective tool to hear these guys in a different format. And
Sure. Brian
does a great job of asking good questions and getting these guys to talk about a lot of interesting subjects. But as you mentioned, we're here in the Alan and Gloria Rice Greco-Roman Hall of Champions. We've had a big line here, and we've had so many good people. Jerry Briscoe's been a great player for us over the past couple of years, and so well connected and helping getting people involved. Charlie Thesz, the widow of Lou Thesz, has been instrumental in the success of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and she comes out every year and is really helpful. Gentleman Bill Murdoch has done a terrific job for us, and he really helps out a lot, and we need those kind of people to help us out, and we're always looking to expand that. But and then you take a look at all the pro wrestlers that you mentioned. You mentioned Jim Ross and Hacksaw, and we're fortunate that Baron Von Raschke and his wife come every year.
Absolutely.
And the great Dan Hodge has been a consistent player for us, and Terry Funk came for the second year in a row. Mick Foley's going to be here tonight, and looking at the lineup, if you will, it's probably as good as it's ever been. So we're really fortunate the guys come back and they're loyal to the museum and the Hall of Fame, and being a Hall of Fame award winner here, or a Frank Gotch winner, Lou Thesz Award. These are big honors, and these guys take a lot of pride in that, and we love it when they want to come back, and it serves as a little bit of a reunion for them as well.
Absolutely. Well, his name is Ken Sesker, the key player here at the Dan Gable Hall of Fame, and it's such a pleasure to come here, and I really appreciate you guys letting me set up here and get the opportunity to talk to you, and I would love to come back next year, and thank you very much, sir, for joining me on the program.
We'd love to have you here every year, Adam. Thank you.